Okay, so this is a conscious mind conversation. I'm wanting to talk about an experience I had with a session. And if you've been guided to this video from someone, it's probably because they love you and they want you to have the bigger perspective of some really challenging experiences that many have asked for in their life contracts. And it may sound very strange for many people to think that you would want to have horrible experiences happen to you in this lifetime to be able to learn and grow from it, when so many people get stuck in the trauma and the really hard challenges of the emotions after being in something pretty challenging. And it's a complicated conversation because it's so emotionary reactionary. Sorry, we get so emotional with this topic, and we react to it in a whole range of emotions because of our own personal experiences. So I'm wanting to talk about this to Karen, my beautiful friend who I love and adore, and I just want to share with her. I don't even know if this is going to be public, but I just wanted to get it out because it's fresh. So thank you for listening to me, Karen, and being my friend.
Yes, I'm all here for you. Thank you.
Okay, so my client is a practitioner, and he's training to become a practitioner. He's got a lot of different modernities that he's been training for, and he's very passionate for the truth. He's very passionate understanding the bigger purposes and principles of life. And he found Dolores Cannon in a really important time. From my understanding, he had a brain tumor, and it really stopped him in his routine of life. And he really had to stop and think about a lot of things. And he just started searching and seeking for guidance. And he found Dolores Cannon, who was saying that, we create these issues for ourselves to get our attention. And so he really wanted to understand what was the message that his body was trying to tell him about this brain tumor, which could potentially very easily take his life. So he had to have a lot of big questions to himself about how he's got to this point. And he realized he needed to start being honest with himself. And he started looking into soul speak and a whole lot of other reference points to what our bodies are trying to tell us. And so he realized it was time for him to start thinking about his behavior and actions in this lifetime. And with great heavy heart and very challenged to want to even think about and to admit to himself about his behavior in his youth, when he would drug and provide alcohol and rape.
I can resonate with his medical concerns. I too went through a cancer treatment and came out on the other side quite well. During that time, I learned to love myself, respect myself. And with that, you do learn to treat others better. I had a lot of questions in the beginning, but I didn't let them consume me. I didn't ask why me. I had to stay positive. I reached out to many unseen friends to help me and guide me and support me and love me. And those are the ones that taught me to love myself, that I am worth it. I do deserve this. What I mean by this is the better life. And I had tremendous personal growth when I went through that medical journey. I had great support from my friends and family that are here on this planet. But the ones that taught me the most are my unseen friends, my subconscious, angels, and other entities that I feel that are close to me that I called on. They were there with me every treatment. And I felt them, and I knew they were there, and I knew the love. I don't want to be emotional because I want to get, these words out. Everybody deserves that love. If they just open themselves up, they can find it and receive it. But it took me having this experience to learn that. A lot of us go through those very tough experiences, but those are the ones that truly help you grow the most. Those are the honest ones. Those are truth. Not everything on this earth is truth. Sometimes it's not even worth looking for. But once you feel love, you do know the truth. You do know what's true and what's important.
Yes, but it's such a full-on emotional journey, isn't it? When suddenly everything changes. And I think so many people trust the medical system that they go into instant fear. So I think it's incredible that you found strength.
I didn't trust them, and I fought with my doctors all the time. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And I knew it was a contract that I came to fulfill, to learn the shit show that goes on here. They don't know our bodies. Everything is an experiment or second guess. But for some reason, I chose to go through that. So I did. I accepted, my contract and what I agreed to, and I completed the treatment fully. So when I deliver this information and my experience back to my collectives, or it goes into the Akashic records, what our medical system does to human bodies, that history is there. That does become truth because it did happen.
I remember Dolores's many messages and conversations about this, where they just are really out of date, and the human body is such a mystery to them. And unfortunately, it's big business. So
It's big business because we're afraid to die.
Yeah.
That has been in our DNA for thousands of years. Fear death, life after life after life, even though we're going to have another one and our souls know it, our human brains don't, and we're conditioned to fear death. And that's why the medical industry and the pharmaceutical and even the educational makes so much money off of, preserving the human body, the human mind, because we all are so afraid of what's after this. And we shouldn't be. We do know the truth. We can ask our subconscious, and we get the answers that we are capable of understanding and accepting at the time. But the more you grow, the more you will learn from them. And it's not that uncomfortable to know what death would be like. It's different than here, that's for sure. Once you're off this 3D planet for good and not, recycling over and over again, I guess you can look back and say, I wish I would have died a long time ago, forever from this planet. You won't die, your soul does never die, but eventually you will not come back to this planet. And that will be the happiest time, the way I view it.
Well, then we hear the subconscious saying, you'll miss it, you'll miss the body. And I just wanted to say that when you were speaking, I just thought, if we'd only listened to Jesus, because his message to humanity was fantastic. And I didn't know much about his messages until I could feel him the other day when we're channeling. And I was like, if only people listened to him and trusted him, we would know about reincarnation. What would Jesus say?
Well, in the Bible, it did say, few will find the path. So it's hard to listen to other humans. We're always looking for the answer, but then when it's like handed to you, sometimes we don't even believe it. I know I was that way, younger in my youth, and I unfortunately walked around with a chip on my shoulder, and my ego did rule my life when I was younger. I don't feel it's that way at all anymore. Unfortunately, with each life that we've gone through, as you age and mature, you're more accepting, it seems like, of the actual truths that are out there.
But how did you get to that point where you actually knew or was aware that you had a team, that you could trust a team, and that because if I don't want to label it, but you prayed through each of your radiation treatments, is that correct?
Prayer is not the accurate phrase. I invited my team. I had, I don't know, 6 or 7 that I would ask to support me each time. And it wasn't really prayer as religions nowadays dictate. It was more of I asked, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask them to come and help us. We have free will, and they cannot do that unless you ask. And being, I never felt super sick. I never looked at myself as a victim or even a cancer patient. Yeah, I felt like shit after some of the chemo treatments. And they were tough to get through. It'd be a couple, 2 or 3 days that were miserable. But without their support, I think it would have been worse. I never once threw up with medications. I had fatigue and soreness throughout my body in various, areas. My mental state stayed. I stayed neutral. I treated myself as a patient. So I kind of removed myself from myself, if that makes any sense to you. And I treated myself as the patient as opposed to a victim. So when you get into victim mode, a lot of things can turn negative for you. And your focus isn't on applying what your team's trying to help you with. Because I asked for guidance and strength and love and support, all of that. As I was going through these treatments, not just heal me, please heal me. And I know a lot of people do that. There's so many other aspects that go along with, healing the human body and mind and staying positive.
Well, it's definitely I know you call it a medical journey, and I think that you've approached it very incredibly well. I'm so glad that you had all the support that you did to keep you going. What is your definition of prayer? Because I know, we all have labels for different things, but wouldn't it be said that you calling on and having the intention to have them there, isn't that effectively you pray? Yeah.
And yes, it is, but also I grew up in a family, I was baptized Catholic. In their prayer system, they have prayers that you say in repetition. And that's that religion's guidance. That wouldn't have served me. You actually, the prayer that, if you want to call it that, I used came from my heart, came from my soul. And when it came back to me, I felt theirs.
I feel like that's the pure definition of what was supposed to be connecting in with them was, if the labeled prayer, I think what you were doing was the original intent and hope and guidance.
And that could be possibly why I was given this contract or, accepted it, because I learned a different way, a different means. And now today I'm sharing it with you. And I know that it's going to help some people that are out there. There's no lost causes on this earth. Everything can be changed. You have this within you. And you have a team that's just sitting there waiting for you to ask them to help.
For me, I think I'm going to start calling it my prayer call where I'm going to imagine that they're waiting on the phone, waiting by the phones, and it's a hotline, and I will be like, right, I'm going to make a direct dial call to my team. They're going to pick it up and be like, yes, hello, Joanne. And I'll be like, hey, what are you wearing? Lovely day today. And then I will give them my wish list of all my free will things that I want. I think that sounds like calling Santa in some regards, but you know, they're up for it, I think.
Well, that's also an unseen force that many, believe in. So they have hope. But when I view my team, I see them always outside on a very sunny day, and they're like all sitting on this bench. And it's like they feel like me approaching them with just a thought. And they're all like raising their hands, going, pick me, pick me, pick me. And that's how I see my team when I'm ready to ask for assistance. There was a time, I don't know, a couple months back, where I thought they're going to get so tired of me leaning on them. But then I found out that no, they love that part of their job. They want you, even if it's every second of the day, they want to be involved. They love you that much.
I feel compassionate for them because they are doing their due diligence, supporting and being and guiding so many people. That is what they've signed up for. But that moment of us recognizing them and being grateful for all of the things that they've been able to do for us, even though we're completely oblivious, how could they ever get sick of that acknowledgement? It's that, I mean, they're not our parents, but we're sort of like these ungrateful children that are spoiled and want everything from them, and then we don't even want to recognize them, call them on their birthdays or whatever, so I'm trying to make light out of this.
Well, just like us, they have their contracts as well, and they signed up for this role. This is their unconditional love that they have learned throughout their lessons, just to not pay it forward, but kind of pay it backwards so we can learn from them.
I want to make a joke about them must having naughty karma, and that who's going to get the naughty kids? Who's going to get the ones that will never acknowledge you and just take and drain? But I mean, it's like, as we discovered in these sessions, they learn from us as much as we learn from them. And that is incredible because it is a nice mutual balance. I do know many people have had to have exit points here because they're just off path. They're just so draining and so taxing, and really, the higher self has said, no, this is just, it's too much now. And they have exited that connection because it just is taking a toll in not a good experience growth way. So, we can use our free will as we choose, but if you don't respect our higher selves boundaries and limits, I guess there is some problems there in some cases. And so getting back to us signing these life experiences to be of purpose, to be able to serve humanity at this very important time, I discovered that someone did sign up to play the role of the rapist. Now, I don't like that label, but it is that label. We all know that in history, there have been people who have done many crimes against humanity, and that is in their life contract to teach, to expose, to do that. And while it's very hard when we are immature through our spiritual growth to understand and accept that, once you get to that maturity level of understanding that all experiences are important, there is no good or bad, and that the growth of the experiences of the range of emotions is literally what these 3D lifetime experiences are all about. It is not about having a very boring life with no challenges, everything's perfect, and then you die at old age, retired, surrounded by your grandchildren. You've already probably had those lives, and those lives don't need to be repeated. If you've already mastered that, if you've already had that picture perfect lifetime, potentially if you're experiencing something different now, it is because you've chosen that. And that is very disarming for people who want to feel victimized to their own situations. When you see it from the bigger perspective and get that confirmation, oh no, you chose it, says your subconscious. You know, this was really important for your other experiences. So when it comes to sensitive, very sensitive topics like rape, sexual abuse, it is taboo, just like death. It is such a taboo conversation, and you can't justify death as being a positive thing, because then you're a monster, because you're not considerate of the children that have had to die. And you can't see sexual abuse as positive experiences for lessons, because then you're endorsing something that is morally horrific. And yes, those emotions and those morals are very testing and challenging. I'm not condoning it by any sense, but then I have to respect people's life contracts and the experiences that they have chosen. I have no right to judge. And as Dolores Cannon said, you just don't know what's in people's life contract for them to experience it. So who the heck are we to judge that, thinking that is good or bad or anything in between?
Yes, that's true. And when you do bring up the rapist, that act is nothing but control. Control over who they chose to make their victim at that moment.
I don't want to come across as anyone that knows anything about much, but all I can share is the lessons and the purposes of from the subconscious, what they've explained to me about that person having that life contract. It was, and this is not justifying this experience, but this is explaining what the subconscious said to me. The contract between both parties were life contracts. They had to experience it. Both parties have a range of emotions about it. We would assume that the rapist is pleased with himself and happy. And we also know that, I guess, the label rapist is not gender specific. You can have multiple genders can do it. I don't want to talk about gender, it gets confusing. But so this person had a life contract to do what he did, to be able to help those, shall we say, victims. It's hard to label it victims, because they've chosen these experiences, even though I'm like, they're totally victims to that experience. But it gets hard because my emotions want to kick in, but I'm trying to see it from the bigger perspective, from the metaphysical, which was they chose to have that experience to be violated. As hard as that is for me to understand, like, anyway, I'm just going to get over my own emotions and try to get out of it. Hang on, sorry. So they both chose to play this role because for some of those people who had that experience with him, it was them learning what they had to experience in this lifetime, because they had done it using their free will and had been on the reverse side. They had raped others in other lifetimes. And so to do a karmic contract, to be able to understand it from the reverse, they had to have this experience. My client is a volunteer. He's never had any other lifetimes here, so he came with no karma, but he was to be of service to help many pay back their karma, which is really experience the reverse of what they've done.
That's incredibly sad and amazing at the same time for that person. But while you were speaking about the victimhood part of it, I was also thinking that there's another layer that could possibly play a victim. What if the victim became pregnant? And what if the victim chose abortion? Didn't they just create another victim?
Well, that aborted soul had that choice. They signed up for that experience to do that, potentially, maybe because they had done that in another lifetime. Like there is no bank manager controlling the karmic cycles of payback. Well, here you go. Oh, I'm collecting now. And I find karma gets confused because it's about learning all of the aspects of the one situation. Playing both sides of that experience, playing both sides of that role. And of course, it's easy to kind of like explain it from the life contracts of what you've signed up for. Bloody hard to process the emotions for it. But that's literally, again, what is here in this 3D life, is to offer us all these experiences of all the challenges of the emotions. And the full range of it. So he was, so anyway, this was in his youth. He's not in his youth anymore. Remembering there was a time where there was no social media, so people weren't sending copious amounts of selfies at parties. He has no idea who the victims are.
So he's had multiple experiences with this act.
Yes. It was interesting to note that his subconscious said, yes, there was many that he had contact with, but because he turned into addiction for him, because he was also using the drugs and the alcohol and doing this behavior as part of that experience, there was many who did not sign up for this contract. And I was like, whoa, okay, so then he's used his free will. He has now created his own karma, which he needs to pay back. And that's what his subconscious said. And so his life purpose is to help with the evolution of humanity. His life purpose is to help heal humanity's abuse experiences, sexual abuse experiences, to be able to see it from bigger perspectives. It doesn't help the victim to know, wow, you signed up for it, sweetheart, sorry. No. It's not about suck it up. It's not about get over it. It is about understanding the purpose for those experiences, to feel those emotions.
So in past sessions, we've heard and learned that the karma cup is full. Will he have to balance his karma somewhere else?
He has an opportunity to do it in this 3D. They said that he doesn't feel like he needs to go to the new earth because he is an advanced being, that it's not of interest for the soul. It is an opportunity for him to stay on the old earth and help humanity that way. So he's destined to do what he needs to do to help humanity. I just wanted to add, I mean, obviously I could cry for days about the victims and people being abused. Those people who didn't have life contracts to experience this. So I sent healing to all. I asked all collectives to come in and be able to release anyone that no longer, I asked for profound healing and profound love and profound releasing of all the trauma from all of humanity for these sexual traumas, if it no longer serves them. And of course, I feel really responsible to be able to sort of see what else we can do using these sessions, knowing how profound these sessions are, and knowing how cooperative, all our collectives are. So what I wanted to say was those who did not have life contracts to experience this, because I don't want to say I panicked, but I was very considerate of all my client and also the others who he had this experience with. The subconscious told me that they will have no recollection of it because it was not in their life contract. Therefore, those who do recall it have to experience overcoming those lessons and learning whatever they chose to learn from those experiences.
I like that a lot. But I also, even though he was the villain and not the victim in some of these cases, I want to weep for him as well. I feel that his heart is broken.
Yeah.
After he has realized some of the things that he's done in his past, it's hard to forgive yourself. And that might also be a lesson. Things that we've done that we are just totally ashamed of. It's really hard to forgive yourself. And that is an attachment that we have to let go. We have to forgive and move forward.
So he didn't know it was a life contract to be of service. He felt like he was the worst person on the world. He hated himself. He created that illnesses. He had many near-death experiences. He abused drugs. He abused alcohol. He didn't want to be alive here. He hated him. And the shame and the guilt, it was eating him alive. And it is great pain. And for him to know he is, well, for him to believe that he is this monster, and for him to see he loves his family, he loves his friends, and he wants to have, in quotation marks, a normal life, but he feels like he doesn't deserve that. He is so deeply in pain of the shame of it. And he didn't know, because he does have a sexual abuse a history in his family, he didn't know if it was a trained behavior or whether it was a life contract. And he wanted to understand the purpose of it, and he was ready to know, because he just wanted to know how to process moving forward.
That is very tough. I know we all go through our dark night of the soul, our life reviews as we even live here. And they might not be as incredibly traumatic as what he's experienced. But we all do have to accept, love it, release it, and forgive ourselves.
And yes, but when you feel that what you have done is so morally unforgivable, you know, no one's saying, hey, it's okay, it's a life experience, you're cool. When you're,
It is, I see what you're saying. And our society, like you said, dictates this is taboo. Sexual crimes, crimes against children, they are murder. There's several out there that are, the biggies. When you know it's morally wrong for the rules and the limits that are here on this planet and what we grew up with, it's embedded in us. You don't do that. I know that everybody has their skeletons. Some still have flesh on them, I guess. All we can do is offer, guidance in the healing and the self-love to get past it.
we've focused on, the victims and the crimes, and, often in these sessions, and we've always tried to sort of see it from a metaphysical perspective, we know that the crimes against humanity with the children is a very big one for people to understand, accept, and be able to release judgment from, because they just want to always see those children as little children who are vulnerable victims. And we have learned in sessions that those children chose those life purposes and experiences for their own life contracts, whether it is to clear their karma or something else. And it's not until you see that perspective and accept other people's life choices and contracts for their own personal experience that it really doesn't, it shouldn't impact us. Even though it does, this is part of our spiritual maturity, is settling in with understanding the lessons that others need, not necessarily ours.
So I have a thought. I want to see what you think. I know that we have different races here, and some DNAs have been mixed. It seems like certain species have an easier time with the acts that aren't acceptable in our society. Is it possible that some of these people, even though they are collecting their, life experiences and putting them in their suitcase and walking on with them, it's like, okay, I got that one mastered. But is it possible that influencers from other collectives that also wanted these experiences are dictating how certain people act with their contracts? And maybe they're more devastating than they should have been. Just like this volunteer that you've been speaking of. Yes, there were some of his victims that they wanted the experience, but then there's some that did not. So he overplayed his role.
Yes, he did. And that's why he is so eager now to find ways to be able to help heal humanity from that. Because he's not just the poster child for this experience. There's, probably, a huge number of people who have done it. I have heard, a lot of many of my clients who have had sexual challenges, sexual abuse, and when you scratch into why they chose their experiences, sometimes it's other lifetimes where they've been husband and wife, or like you cannot understand from a 3D mindset why people are connected, why people do certain things with each other, what the true motivation is. We always go into judgment from this perspective, which of course again is more experiences for us to have. It's a complicated one because yes, we've talked to Hitler and we understand that he took on this big role, and we know that his life purpose was to awaken humanity to people who had different agendas to help humanity. And I've never seen and felt the deep pain of someone whose consciousness is so heavy with regret, remorse. And it's like, the burden is so great that he wants profound relief. It is so pressurizing him so much. I don't know if the one session is going to be able to help him release and understand that. I mean, he will be able to understand that he did play those roles for those who it was contracted with, but then he knows it was his free will and his choices after that. He should have learned from those feelings, but I guess the drugs numb. Not that we're blaming the drugs, because he chose those drugs. He chose that alcohol, and he chose that experience. Unfortunately, we seem to have a society of alcohol and drugs and sexual it's just it's such a heavy conversation. But here we are. We've always tried to say to people, release what no longer serves you. Thinking, it's those victims and those people that are really challenged from their experiences, that they can't release them because bad things have happened to them. And I know that they have said many times, you may have done something bad to others, or others may have done something bad to you, in quotation marks, bad. But this is a really deep experience for me, to be on a journey with someone who cries for humanity, because he feels like he is solely responsible for the pain, and he's taken a lot of responsibility on himself for it. It is his life purpose, so he is very intuitive to that. That's why he feels the density of it so much more. For some reason, I sort of, the victim, the villains always are laughing, and they're always sort of, it's control and ha ha ha. I did horrible things to you, and I regret nothing, because that's how kind of it seems to be, like in the movies or whatever. But to have an honest conversation with someone who can be honest to me about the experiences which is tormenting him. There's so much layers to this, so I'm sorry that I'm not even able to formulate it, but I did not expect to have compassion, deep compassion for the torment he's putting on himself, because he's lowering his vibration. We're wanting everyone to be releasing everything, but when you don't know it's a life contract, you just think you're a jerk.
I would like to compare one of your statements to how we have helped the reptilians and the Anunnakis in the past. We don't know their contracts and their purpose, and we have viewed them as villains, total dicks, whatever. But we have, learned to respect those contracts or the other collectives. I really have a strong feeling that he was influenced to go further with his role, because if he's feeling this deep remorse, that's something he needed to learn. And by accepting it, I think that will be a part of the healing process. And if he's, willingly talking about it and expressing how he's feeling, he's definitely on the right path, the path to heal himself.
He is trying to forgive himself, knowing that he can't change the past, he can only change his future forward, and he feels like he has to admit publicly what he has done, and he is preparing himself emotionally for his family to hate him. He is preparing for society to hate him. And when you have got to that point of being honest and trying to forgive yourself and see the bigger picture and purpose of lessons, and then accept and prepare that you have to respect others seeing you as this.
It's almost making yourself a martyr. I'm thinking of other things that he could help women's shelters and make amends, and that would help heal in some ways as well. I don't know if tearing his whole family apart is going to be a service to anyone. I don't know about that.
I know that when sexual crimes happen within the family, if they're not dealt with at the time, it will just, the purpose of them to be exposed is to be honest and get that person to experience being caught out and the ramifications of it then and there, and not just sweep things under the rug, because it never goes away. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So they often, the contract is sexual predator, sexual abuser, to then be caught out, to experience all of those emotions of being caught doing something profoundly shameful, and then for them to learn those lessons, for it to never occur again. Often when it doesn't get that full result, full experience, it will be repeated until they get those experiences of feeling the shame of publicly knowing it, or the prosecution, or the other stuff that goes with the act. It's never just the sexual act that people have to experience. It's all the emotions that are connected to it. And it seems like there is a theme that I can see when sexual abuse within step families, or siblings, when it got discovered, the subconscious will say that was the time when the family needed to be honest with each other and be able to work together, to be able to heal all aspects of it, to come together eventually and be able to support each other as a family unit. But because of the social stigmas, then there is that division of the families. It is that trauma that you can never forgive them, and they become ostracized. But what the hardest thing is what we've signed up for in our contracts and what we want to experience and learn, and then how we react and apply the social stigmas and norms. That makes it so much more extra complicated, and we don't seem to really follow in the path that was sort of supposed to have those original lessons and journeys, and it gets so challenging.
So is his concern to break the cycle within his family by exposing, bringing the truth to the surface?
It is, well, the subconscious said that it was to help heal humanity from sexual abuse.
Okay.
From being honest about your behaviors, to take responsibility of your behaviors, and to be able to show your emotions of your choices, and not having excuses of, oh, it's ancestral, I'm just part of that, but to firmly stand in one's own power.
I have a lot of sadness towards this whole thing. I know it's not going to be easy, whatever approach they decide on. Nothing can prepare his family for what they're going to hear.
Well, the challenge is that the victims can't be supported, and they can't get their justice. They can't. It's like they have to heal on their own, whatever journey they've chosen to respond to it. I mean, unless you try to go on, I don't know, national television and say, I was a predator and I would do this, please contact the police if you recognize me in your drunken state. Like, I just don't seem, it's strange, Karen, because it's like knowing how we can help humanity with these sessions. I mean, was the session itself asking the collectives to come in and help release? Was that part of his role, and was that it, or is it something else? Because they said him doing, like, say, for example, that, like, I asked, is he supposed to do sessions with people, or like, what, show us what is he supposed to do moving forward to be able to make amends, to be able to heal, and release, and balance that karma. He's really genuine about how to balance that karma. And it wasn't like one-on-one sessions, and it wasn't just, it wasn't just local to his region, his country. It's like a global thing for humanity. So I feel like there must be more to it, and I just don't quite know what it is yet.
If he exposes the truth, the way our society is, he'll be shunned. That will make it super hard for him to extend the help that he wants to put out there. So that being said, what avenue can he take for a balance there? For, you know, to release the truth, but still help? Or just releasing the truth will be the help?
Would it be that people who have done certain things like him similarly, for them to question what was their purpose in doing this? Was this also like contracts? Were they playing a part to it? Because I mean, you've got to want to have help to be able to seek out the truth, to be able to understand how to process it and move forward. If he can't release what no longer serves him, if he can't release and let go of his past, that is, which I'm assuming there's a huge amount of the population that are judging themselves that we've never even considered. Those people who've done the crimes against humanity, we assume that they are, you know, living these amazing lives and super happy that they've disempowered humanity with their own dark agenda. We have all these assumptions that they must be super proud and pleased with themselves, because otherwise, why would they keep doing it? And we're completely oblivious to what it looks like, and we judge.
Yes, and we judge and we label, even towards ourselves. There are a lot of lessons to be learned, and it can be a very selfless act to be very transparent like that for others to learn from.
My friend, we always think, why did we sign up for these lifetimes? But my gosh, having this as a comparison, oh, it's a picnic in my life now.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, we've all done things that we regret or, you know, want do-overs on. But, definitely more than I would want to take on in this lifetime for myself.
I mean, with these situations, there's no, I mean, they're not easy to navigate emotionally. And my heart breaks for everyone who is still struggling with these life experiences, to be able to be so triggered to then find the opportunities for the growth, to understand the purposes and the lessons. I just want to say one thing, and then we should probably wrap it up. I had a mother come in for a session, and her biggest challenge was that her son was in prison for, I can't remember now, for something, and she was so embarrassed. She felt like his whole life had been wasted. She raised him better. She said she took it so personally, and it was just her shame, and just she was devastated, beyond devastated. And what the subconscious said was, he was at a life path. He was at a crossroads. If he didn't do this smaller crime and be in jail for it, and now he's got this time to be able to go within and empower himself, have this solitude, and to be able to have a spiritual awakening, which is exactly what he needed to do at that time, because the crossroads was he was going to meet other people, be part of a bigger crime, which would have taken other people's life contracts away and his own. And it would have been much, much, much worse. And when we heard that bigger perspective, that client left happy and glad that her son was in prison.
Sounds like he got the time out he needed.
And she got the clarification and the perspective to be able to help heal herself and make her be able to accept it and understand that there is so much more going on. And whatever we are having to be guided through and pushed through is exactly what we need to be able to be mastering this 3D, mastering these emotions, learning from them, growing from them, understanding them. We can't just read about these emotions in a book. We must experience all. And when you remember you are this bigger version of yourself, we're multidimensional beings, and this small version of ourselves are having fun times on this 3D planet, exploring all of the emotions that we possibly can, and growing from all these experiences. We cannot judge them as good or bad.
No. But we find ourselves doing that because we lack information. She fortunately was presented with, broader information about her son, and that left her feeling a lot better about his path. It sounds like she was more concerned with his path than her own, because she was embarrassed.
She, she's a helicopter parent. She lives through her son. She's so proud of her son. She wants him to be a leader in his culture, in his life, in his world, and she prepared him for all of that. So for him to suddenly go off path, we all present ourselves in a certain way to our parents or to our whatever, right? We always want to kind of be squeaky clean and doing the best we can, and definitely brushing our teeth and, whatever. But the reality is, we are different from, well, obviously her son had other hobbies that he liked to do, which he kept away from her. So she was completely oblivious to it. So it surprised her, it shocked her, it made her feel like she didn't even know her son. And when she was trying to control and manipulate her son and own her son to be an extension of self, this was her world ending. And so she was beyond devastated, went into a deep depression because her identity was attached to him. So for her to realize and learn, things could be, she could have lost him, he could have died, but he had chosen other things. Suddenly it was like she'd won lotto. She was so happy with her life. She was very, very happy with her life. She realized he was safe. She realized he was protected from other different paths and people that could have led him in a different distraction. So, these sessions are very powerful, but what we can do with the information and process it and apply it for us to understand and help us navigate to find that inner peace, to find that neutral, to understand that we can't possibly know what other people's contracts are. So therefore, how can we try and understand what they need or want to be able to be best of service to them?
Well, I like lots of parents, and we live our lives through our children's. It's like a second chance for us. So I get the disappointments when the child doesn't stay on the path that we chose for them or we expected them to live. But you're right, when we don't know their contracts, we feel like failures sometimes. And that's where something we have to experience ourselves.
Well, I think if people just watched a few episodes of Dance Moms, I think we would all learn and grow from it. And
Is that the show with Honey Boo Boo in it?
I don't know. But I think we can experience through journeys of reality TV certain things that definitely do not serve us, and hopefully we can grow from it and apply it to our own lives maybe. Okay, well, thank you very much for letting me express this. I still need to think about it and process it. It's a hot topic.
Well, thank you for the conversation, and I hope the client finds healing. Like we all of course need that in our lives. So thank you for letting me engage in this conversation.
Thank you for sharing your personal experiences as well. You know, it's so good to be able to hear things from different perspectives. And thank you,